Test 1 2, test 1 2.
2021 Sylvania Board of Education meeting. Ms. Shanks, can you call the roll?
Julie Hoffman.
Here.
Bruce Lundquist.
Here.
Greg Feller.
Here.
Kimberly Conklin. Here. Tammy Lavalette. Here.
Thank you, and please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and with that, we are at the transportation update.
Good afternoon, everyone. I should say evening, afternoon. Before we jump into the transportation presentation, I just have a brief statement I would like to make. So, Mr. Beck, while you're getting set up, I'll be ready for you in about 2 shakes. I thought it was important to share some thoughts about some things that have transpired over the past week, and especially this weekend. Over the course of the past week, those of you who are online or here may have heard about a number of incidents involving student misconduct at our high schools. We know rumors are brewing and often lead to inaccurate depictions of events that have transpired or not transpired, and this saddens me. Quite frankly, it's disappointing and deeply disturbing. One of the things we ask our community and our parents to understand that as a district, we do value and practice transparency. However, that same transparency must be coupled with confidentiality when discussing or sharing information regarding students, investigations, due process, and assigned consequences. As a district, by law, we must uphold the laws and the tenets of confidentiality as we are working with minor children. As a district, as a school board, as an educator, as a superintendent, I strongly urge you to take caution when reading and or commenting on social media. Details that circulate on social media are often not a reflection of the entire situation, and more often than not, they are completely inaccurate. For example, just this weekend, counter to what has been shared on social media, there has been no evidence, zero evidence, nor has anyone reported of finding a noose at Southview High School. It is unfortunate that speculation and rumors spread so quickly, especially when incidents potentially involve minors. Often, more details are added to the storyboard, and again, are not reflective of the facts. This misinformed and often misguided rhetoric becomes a blemish on our district, and it tarnishes the positive reputation of our Sylvania community. As always, I want our parents and our community to know when incidents are brought to our attention, we conduct a thorough investigation, and the district's administration takes immediate and swift action. Consequences are administered based on facts, not assumptions. Specific details involving students are protected by confidentiality laws that protect the privacy of our students and their families. And nevertheless, our Sylvania families can be assured that our district takes all forms of misconduct seriously. We take great pride in our high schools and in our elementary schools and our junior high schools, and the accomplishments of our students and our tradition of excellence. We will continue to excel, as well as surpass the expectations of our beloved learning community. And I just thank you for listening this evening, and please, once again, just be cautious as you post or read matters that are on social media. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're still with you, and
Mr. Beck, you're up with a transportation update.
is it going to be up here?
Yes. I asked Mr. Beck as Director of Transportation and Ms. Nish, our Assistant Director of Transportation, to come here to present on transportation. We all have recognized around not only our local area, the state, nationally, Transportation is struggling, specifically as it relates to a lack of bus drivers. So I thought it was important this evening that not only did we provide an update to our board, but also members of the community who may be looking in this evening or at a later date. So Deb, Joe, I'll turn it over to both of you. Thank you for
people are
coming.
adjusting. Deb. When I first came here. Talking with other directors throughout the state and even on the national level, it's just not here an issue. And we're not the only workforce either that are having positions. But our number one problem right now is lack of drivers. One specifically for dispatch, which first day was today, and the other individual is a router and routing only. So that has really helped us on the organizational side within the office. 4 out of the 6 personnel inside the office have a CDL, and 2 or 3 of us are driving on a daily basis. So we are really, really short. And then the other office staff, they're working anywhere from 10 to 15 hours weekly of overtime per day or per week, just to help where we're having shortcomings. Just because if we go out, then they need to cover multiple different reasons just to stay afloat. And that's kind of the snapshot of what we currently have. The drivers, they are truly our greatest asset. Last night, right around 8:30, 9 o'clock, I got an email sent to me praising one of our drivers. And I don't say my drivers, they're our drivers, they're the community, on how well this driver is, what they do for their kids, how much it means to them. And I sent that on to her last night as well. So they truly are our greatest asset. They're doing extra routes right now. When I first came, they didn't care if they would help or not. That's not part of my job. What I have seen over the last 2 years is drivers really stepping up. They're doubling routes, and I'm even hearing on the radio, "I'm done, do you need any help anywhere?" So I'm starting to hear that more and more this year as well. And I really knew the tide was changing and transportation was on the right path. We currently have 3 transportation employees telling their adult children, "Come to transportation, come work there, it's a good place." So I know the shift is happening. We're not where we need to be, but I definitely do know that we're on the right path based on that alone. The then, now, and projected. In 2019, I was given a really clear picture of what was happening at that time. We had buses late. The routes were being doubled. We had 72 routes, just over 4,000 daily miles, and just over 4,000 daily riders. Well, today, I can tell you we still have buses late, we have routes being doubled, but we're doing it with 65 routes, and we actually have an increase of around 150 miles per day. The daily riders, I do not have that number yet. I am going through the T1 report, which is where we get our state funding. Right now, the numbers are looking like they're going to be higher than that 4090. I don't have the final count, but that's what it's looking like right now. Then looking at the projected side, and I'm using the Tim Kite's E plus R equals O, where the event plus the response equals the outcome. Right now, our event is the lack of drivers following the Ohio Revised Code, Ohio Administrative Code, and Ohio Department of Education guidelines for busing. Our response right now is, under the current crisis, what do we manage? Are we managing the symptom or are we managing the root cause? At times, I will tell you it's a symptom, which is the lack of drivers. And the outcome that we really want, and why we're sharing this with you tonight, is we want a smooth, safe, and efficient service that the public deserves. What I don't want to do is tell you things that we can't do, but things that we can. And I will tell you that Murphy, if you know Murphy, will always come into play somewhere when you're not expecting it. Failure versus functioning. We are very close. We are functioning right now, but we are very close to failing at times. It's not a matter of if, but a matter of when. And I've had this conversation with Dr. Motley. We've heard other schools in the area and throughout the state that are canceling bus service for certain bus numbers for that day. We are very close. And we are doing everything that we can to try and make sure that doesn't happen. So we are looking for solutions, and Deb has been a great part of making us be able to do our busing each day. Some of the things that we have changed to date, we've looked at combining bus routes. We've done several of those. We've added schools to multiple routes. What that means is if we were on a two-tier system for, say, Deb Nish today, we have now added a third school to help with that. We have squeezed everywhere we can. We have sent out notices to parents asking, if your kids aren't riding the bus, please let us know so we can make adjustments to our routes as well as not saving a seat. The other thing that just started, and I just learned that Deb did this last week, was she's going to the high schools and asking who has a parking spot registered at your school so we can see if they have a bus route or not, where we could also look at removing them as well. The other last and final item we're doing is looking at a plan B. What if there isn't enough drivers? What do we do? And I can tell you that Dr. Motley and I have had this conversation that's going on 3 or 4 weeks now of what if? What do we do? Some of the changes that are currently in progress. We are upgrading our routing software system, which allows for easier access to staff members when you're looking up students or what bus they ride. It actually allows for a route upload based off of what the bus is doing compared to what we say that it should be doing. Updating a GPS from a 3G to a 4G, it allows 4 turn-by-turn directions for sub-drivers, and it will also allow for an electronic pre-trip that can also have pictures taken and sent directly to our mechanics of what is happening. Electronic attendance comes with both the routing software and the GPS merging together, where with that iPad/Samsung unit, they will be able to take attendance as well. Currently, we've been using the driver to take attendance as they either get on the bus or off the bus, depending if it's morning or afternoon, so we can trace who is or is not getting on the bus. This now gives us the electronic part of it, where we can see it currently as well as historically to see the true ridership. One of the other things that we are also looking at is using vans to utilize for some students that we are legally allowed to do that through Ohio Department of Education. And then the last item there is Parent App. We are currently testing that with staff members right now, and we'll be soon rolling that out as well, which is another change that we're doing. What this is a whole lot of data, and on the left side you will see Middle School Timberstone, Middle School McCord, so it has the schools on the left side, and then the next column is the number of students that I have in my system that are registered at that school. Now please understand, it may be off just a little bit. This data was drawn last week. The next column, the number of requests, that is the number of students or parents requesting their children have busing. So for Timberstone, since it's the first one, 618 students registered with 550 requesting transportation. The next 5 columns represent the distance from the school to their home. So it's a half a mile. There are 6 students that have busing within that half-mile drive path. It is not a radius, it is a drive path. The next one is 3/4 of a mile. There are 15 students. And then a mile at 24, And then 1.5 miles is 35. And students that live 2 miles or under from the school, there are 53. And those are registered for busing. That is how that whole data sheet reads. What I did is looked at, because of the number of drivers that we have, what if we made some type of change to the busing area that we provide transportation? According to Ohio Department of Education, busing is required for K through 8 over 2 miles. That is the minimum requirement. Everything else is a bonus. So in this, we looked at the numbers and where we felt, Deb and I felt that this would impact us the greatest. And we see at the middle school and the high school level, if we went to 1.5 mile from the school where there was no busing, that is where we would get a decent amount of buses that could help us in other areas. And then for the elementary, we looked at 1 mile from there. This does have an extra column, so I'll go back up to the Timberstone where you see in the green it says 35. That's where 35 students live within that 1.5 miles. And then the number right beside it is what we project. It's a projection, it's an estimate, it's our best guess of how many buses we believe we could save. We have not ran all the routing, but that is based on numbers strictly. And typically we look at 50 kids per bus. That's a good benchmark to start. So that is our projection there based on what we feel comfortable with. And again, it could vary a little bit. Some of the proposed changes that we're looking at for you guys to consider, to change the area that buses pick up. So we would go for the high school, middle school, from everyone rides to 1.5 miles from school. Now I will tell you, as I was doing some of this, in that scenario of 1.5, I did find some students that lived 1.499 miles from the school. That is not by the way the crow flies, that is not by Google Maps. That is by the computer that has their address, the school's address. It is 100% non-human interactive when it comes to deciding what that distance is. The elementary, we're looking at 1 mile from school for proposed changes for your consideration. Why would we want to do that? We don't have the drivers. So yes, I know this is a huge impact, but we need drivers, and we don't have the means to do it right now. Create all corner stops that are within state requirements. What this will do is in the afternoon, when I talked about being late to schools, when we double, when we have subs, when we're doing those things and asking other people to, well, can you take this street? Can you take that block? It causes us to be late to other schools. By increasing or making our stops to corners, it's going to increase our odds of being at school at the dismissal time closer. It's also going to reduce the ride time for students. Now, is it going to be huge? The answer is no. But I will tell you, in transportation, minutes matter. Minutes matter for us. And it's also going to be easier for sub-bus drivers to manage as well. It is extremely difficult to go down a dark alley or a dark road and try and figure out where the house number is located, whether it's on the mailbox, whether it's on the house, where it's at. The most difficult job in any district, in my opinion, is a sub-bus driver because you're not familiar, even though we have the routes for them. The use of vans is also something that we are looking at. Currently, we have 3. There's been conversations of purchasing more. And with that, what we can do is we can transport some students with those vans legally. And the other thing that I would ask that you consider or reconsider is the payment in lieu for eligible students, which we looked at a few years ago as well. The effects of the proposed changes: reduction in overtime hours, provide an on-time pickup drop-off service, enables coverage of absent staff, and it fosters consistent, repeatable bus coverage. And that's just because we have the actual personnel there. Reduce the number of times staff is pulled from their classification to cover a bus. What is happening right now is we will pull custodians off their on shift to come over and help us because we need them. So their building is also getting hindered because we're pulling them from their job as well. And then one of the last issues is extracurricular time has been difficult as far as if the high school wants to leave at 3 o'clock, we don't have the people to be able to do that always. Possible timelines for your consideration. One of the things that we could potentially do for corner bus stops for all schools, we could do this, in my opinion, after the winter break for the January 22nd, 2022. The possible timeline for changing the bus area, which would be the busing area where the kids would get picked up. High school, potentially after winter break of January of 22. Middle school, February of 22. And the elementary after spring break of 22. And again, those are just for consideration and goals that are set. What other options do we have? First one is hire more drivers. I can tell you everyone in the state, as well as the nation, is trying to do that very thing, and no one has the answer. If I had the answer, I would not be speaking here. It would be on a national stage and making lots of money, because that is the golden answer that no one has the answer to, or golden question. The state minimum for busing is 2 miles K through 8, and the other option that we could potentially look is third-party bus service as well. So plan B, what happens if none of our stuff works? We're currently reviewing the ridership based on the T1 reports, utilize vans to transport students, and then the last one is cancel some bus service for that day. So for an example, with our 65 buses, we could say bus 1, 2, and 3 are not providing service today because we do not have the staff to do that. So those are some of the options that are being looked at of what we can do with the resources that we do have. Anything additional?
I do. I just want to speak to the board for a minute. Like Joe said, I've been here since 1983. I've seen a lot. I've lived through a lot. I know that if there's any complaints, it's coming right to that table right there. So I guess you guys just really need to decide how you want your Sylvania to look. Do you want it to be at the very last minute, these kids don't know how they'll get to school? Do you want to make a choice that they have an educated plan? And I've seen it. This is the shortest I've ever seen it. I have condensed to where I cannot condense. I've heard people out in the public say, oh, I've seen buses leave out of Northview with 4 buses, or 4 kids in a bus. Not anymore. We are condensed to as far as we can get. I can't squeeze anymore. So we are at that point, and I'm here to tell you, I've been here a long time. This is where we're at. So it's just a choice you have to make. And I thank you for listening.
So I guess with that, do you as a board have questions for us that I can try and answer? And if I don't have the answer, I'll be glad to get it for you. Yes, ma'am.
I have a few. First, you said it wouldn't be as the crow flies. How would the determination be made about who is within the certain radius that they would be excluded from busing?
In the routing program we have, everything is based off of drive path. So it is strictly by the road. We cannot legally do it according to a higher revised code as the crow flies. It's not designed that way. It's the road path. And with that, our program will tell us, based off of their address and the school's address, the exact distance.
So it wouldn't take into account a cut through or something like that, like pathway. Okay. And then my next question is, how would utilizing vans improve the situation?
What we can do, there are certain students who can be legally transported in a van. We're looking at one right now where our numbers are low on a bus, where we could potentially put 2 vans on the road to cover those kids going to and from school, and then we could use that bus driver elsewhere.
So
Who
who would operate the vans?
Pardon me?
Who would be driving the vans then?
We would have to bring in 2 van drivers.
Okay.
And I would tell you it's easier to train a van driver than it is a bus driver, and people are more apt to get a van license compared to a bus. Sometimes the bus is big and scary to people behind the wheel.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions.
Can you email that to us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Anything else?
Okay, thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Deb. Thanks, Joe. Shall I continue?
You shall.
Thank you. I'm recommending approval for item 3.1, which is recognition of student achievement. We have several students who are being recognized this month for achieving ACT scores of 26 and above and an SAT score of 600 and above, and these are students from Northview. So congratulations for their level of outstanding achievement, and I recommend their approval.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions?
Congratulations.
Great job. Ms. Shanks?
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin.
Yes.
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette.
Yes.
Okay, and with that, we are at public participation for items which are on the agenda. Anything, Amy? Okay, and then we are with you, Ms. Shanks.
Thank you. I would like to ask the board to approve on a consent agenda basis items 5.1, minutes of the previous meetings, the work session held on 9/13, and then the regular meeting held on 9/27, the treasurer's report for the month ending September 30th, 2021, and the availability of funds for then and now invoices in excess of $3,000, and 5.4 is the consent agenda measure.
I'll move for approval on a consent agenda basis, items 5.1 to 5.3.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette,
Yes.
Julie Hoffman.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And with that, we are with you, Dr. Motley.
Thank you. I recommend item 6.1, the approval for an overnight field trip. This field trip is for the Southview baseball team and actually JV and varsity players to attend a Fort Walton Beach, Florida competitive baseball tournament. This will take place during March 26, 2022 through April 2nd, 2022. And this has traditionally been an annual field trip.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette,
Yes.
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend item 6.2 for approval. It is a memorandum of understanding between our Board of Education and the Sylvania Education Association for transformational teaching practices, professional development.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? I'd like to point out, since this professional development is taking place on the weekend, we won't have sub-costs
That is
during
correct.
the week, so,
That is correct.
okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend item 6.3, the approval of our preschool program handbook. This is an annual item that outlines the policies, procedures, and protocols for our preschool programs.
I'll move approval. I'll second.
Any comments or questions?
I do have a quick question. I noticed in the portion of the handbook that relates to transmissible diseases, there was no reference to like COVID protocols, things. Is there something that supersedes it that deals with that also?
Not that I know that supersedes it. I do know that we really have not received recommendations from the state in regards specifically for preschools. They really have been focused on K-12. For example, in some districts, such as Sylvania schools, we require masks. In other districts, they do not. But I also know even with the vaccine that's supposed to be rolling out here shortly, they really don't have a lot of, you don't hear a lot of information about preschools and what that means. So no, it is
Okay.
not referenced. Good question, thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Shanks?
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette.
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Julie Hoffman.
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend item 6.4, which is a correction to the previous board agenda. This item, actually, Joe and Deb actually spoke to some of the specific upgrades for our Zonor hardware and software packages. Essentially, each bus will now be equipped with a tablet that has software programming that will allow the turn-to-turn, routing, student attendance, things of that nature. The first particular agreement did not include both attachments of the quote, so this one does include both attachments, and we are asking for approval. And this should be noted that this will be paid for out of ESSER funds and not general funds.
I'll move approval.
I'll second. Any comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Kimberly Conklin?
Yes.
Julie Hoffman?
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette?
Yes.
Greg Feller?
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky?
Yes.
Thank you. I recommend approval of item 6.5 to purchase 3 passenger vans for the purpose of student transportation.
I'll move approval.
I'll
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Yeah, question, couple questions. So you said it's 1 or 3?
3.
Okay. Are these replacing existing vans? Are they buying new vans?
I believe they are replacing 2 and with 1 additional. Is that correct, Lisa? Do you recall?
I think we're
Or is it the
trading
opposite?
one and we're adding two. One of each will be at the high schools.
Okay.
So they can transport smaller groups.
Okay.
Golf team, there's some other,
Okay.
I guess they left. Some of the small groups. that
Golf,
we wouldn't
tennis.
necessarily
The-
need.
Yeah.
To transport a big bus, like the coaches could drive.
Okay.
And if I could add to that, in addition, where he spoke about the flexibility for adding vans, we can also use these vans for the purpose of private school transportation. Instead of using a large bus, we can load those students onto a van, transport them, which frees up a bus driver.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And we may not get these buses this year. They talked about 120 to 130 days, but there's also rumors that they're going to shut down production. So
Okay.
it could be the beginning of next year before we actually get these vans.
Okay.
Anybody else? Ms. Shanks?
Julie Hoffman?
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky?
Yes.
Greg Feller?
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin?
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette?
Yes.
Thank you, and thank you for that clarification, Ms. Shanks.
You're
I
welcome.
recommend item 6.6, an addendum to the MetLife Insurance Company. We recommend board approval for an agreement between the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company and the Sylvania schools. One is a master application and the other is a vision proposal.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Julie Hoffman?
Yes.
Greg Feller?
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky?
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin?
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette?
Yes.
Thank you. Item 6.8 is a recommendation of approval for 2 administrative resignations, one being Wayne Kinsel, Director of Facilities and Operations, and the other is Abby Burnt, Director of Human Resources.
Are
Dr.
you on
Motley, I think we missed
6.8 or
6.7.
6.7?
Oh, I skipped. I apologize. I should be on 6.7. I apologize. I went ahead. Additional administrator duties. I recommend item 6.7 for administrator additional duties. This will allow Larry Ray Halston to serve assigned duties to fill the vacancy of the Department of Facilities and Operations for the period beginning October 25th through December 31st.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Is this in addition to his regular duties?
Yes, it is.
Do you have any idea how much time that's going to consume?
Well, we're doing a similar model of what we shared the responsibilities between Cheryl and Dawn when they covered before Wayne got here. And what I did is we're saying that if Ray has to work a couple hours during the day to do some maintenance and ground pieces, then he will work his regular hours for nutrition services after those hours. Now, the good thing is Ray is on a shorter contract than a 229, so he does have extra days in his schedule to provide a little wiggle room. But we see this as a short-term piece. We may be adding some other things or other people to also help offset the burden of not only his job, which is also kind of tight right now with less employees, but also with maintenance and grounds.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Ms. Shanks?
Julie Hoffman?
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky?
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette?
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin?
Yes.
Greg Feller?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, item 6.8, I recommend approval of 2 administrative resignations that I already discussed. You'll see there, Wayne and Abby.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to Human Resources Licensed, and these items will be on a consent approval agenda basis. Item 7.1 is the resignation of a substitute for our district. Item 7.2 is also a licensed substitute teacher for the employment this school year. We welcome Rebecca. Yay, down 1, up 1, we're breaking even, we like that. Item 7.3, we recommend approval for a licensed unpaid leave. Item 7.4, you'll see a number of licensed extra duty assignments associated with additional compensation for a variety of supports from, you'll see HSTW, which stands for High Schools That Work Professional Development. We have some OST, which is Ohio State Testing Intervention. We have some conscious discipline training, also noted there. We have some teachers who also helped cover some science classes at Northview. We recommend approval for all those items noted. Item 7.5, we recommend the approval of support personnel for athletic events for the 21-22 school year. Item 7.6, we recommend approval of athletic volunteers for the 21-22 school year. Item 7.7, we recommend approval for supplemental positions for the 21-22 school year. We also have a number of parent volunteers that we are also appreciative. Athletic volunteers, parent volunteers, they all help us to make a difference for our children. We have a number of folks listed there for the 5th grade camp. And then item 7.9 is our Licensed Professional Development Committee. And again, item 7.10 is on a consent agenda basis of approval.
I'll move approval on a consent agenda basis, items 7.1 through 7.9.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Thank you. Items 8.1 through 8.5, I recommend approval on a consent agenda basis. Item 8.1 recommends approval for classified extra hours for our Northview Choir concert. These are paras that support students in the choir, as well as you'll see another individual noted for High School That Works Professional Development. Item 8.2 is a number of classified personnel actions. We have a number of individuals in our district who are moving from one position to another within the district. Item 8.3, you will see notes a number of, my computer's freezing up a little bit. 8.3 is recommending the approval of a number of new hires. Welcome to Sylvania Schools. Item 8.4, we have noted a couple of resignations. Item 8.5, we recommend approval of a classified retirement. Roberta Bond, who has been with our district 24 years. We thank her for her time with our students and families and wish her the best on the next part of her journey. Item 8.6 is a recommendation for a consent agenda basis of approval.
I'll move approval on a consent agenda basis, items 8.1 through 8.5.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Ms. Shanks?
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Greg Feller,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Motley.
Certainly.
Time for board committee reports and announcements. Kim?
No.
Greg?
Nothing.
Tammy? Ruslan?
No.
Well, look at that. I have nothing either. So with that, we are to the second opportunity for public participation for items which are not on the agenda. As I call you up, if you could come up to the microphone, state your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes. Vicki Davis.
Hello. I I do have a medical and a religious exemption, but if I need to speak to you with the mask on, I will. I'll comply.
That's
No?
okay.
Okay,
You just
all right, thank
state
you.
your name and address, and then you have
Thank
3
you.
minutes.
It's Vicki Davis. I live at 8411 Faldl, that's F-A-L-D-L Drive in Sylvania. My fiance has been a resident of Sylvania for 50 years. I have been for about the last 3. My background is I'm a financial advisor, and so my nature is research and fact-finding. That's what I've done my whole life, although I'm now disabled. So I also have lots of time because I don't work. So ever since the whole COVID thing started happening, I've done a significant amount of research, and we all know it's been changing from day one over the last 2 years. My concern now is with the masks with the children. And depending on when you research it, whether you use Google or DuckDuckGo, the results are going to be vastly different. I don't know how you guys are managing through this thing. I give you your props for trying to make the decision. But I am concerned because when I became disabled, I also became a pastor and a counselor. And I'm familiar with things like mirroring, especially the children that are still developing. I have a grandson that's 5 years old that attends Sylvania schools. I have a grandson that's 14 years old that attends here. My granddaughter is in Bedford. Sadly, I missed that board meeting because they were optional. I understand now they have gone to mandatory, but the board meeting's already over. So my concern is with masking of the children. Now, what I've heard so far, just even this evening, is that you guys are kind of cramming them into buses, and because of necessity. I know that you're purchasing more vans, but it's also you have to do the right thing for the kid too. So I'm really concerned about the masks. I don't know how Sylvania schools made the decision to force mandatory the children to wear masks all day long. But I'm interested in finding out how you came. I did hear you say that some schools are doing it mandatory, some are not. So what did Sylvania schools, how did you guys come to the decision that it was okay to mask the children all day long? That's my question, I guess, to you.
Okay, and ma'am, during public participation, we don't generally answer questions. It's
Okay.
your opportunity
Okay.
to address us, but
Okay.
somebody can absolutely get in touch with you and answer your questions.
Perfect. That would be
Okay?
great. I would really appreciate
Okay.
that.
Ms. Davis, if you would call my office, I'd be happy to sit down and meet with you
Okay.
and share with you how we actually landed on our current mask protocol,
Okay.
as well as where we hope to go in the future. So please feel free to reach out, or since you left your phone number, did she leave her phone number?
No.
If you could write your phone number down, I could have my administrative assistant call you.
Perfect.
And definitely schedule an appointment with you.
Okay, and could you give me your name? Who am I asking?
Veronica Motley, Motley.
Veronica.
Yes,
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
certainly.
And then, are there any, the other thing I'm curious is there any exceptions? Like if they have medical or religious exemptions, do they still have to wear the mask? I know I'm not supposed to ask questions.
Well, we appreciate that you're asking questions. It's just, it's our policy. We don't do a back and forth and answer questions. It's not like a question.
Right,
It's,
okay.
it's your opportunity to address us, but I'm sure that when you meet with our superintendent, Dr. Motley, she will answer all of your questions, about masking and our policies and exemptions.
Okay, so you're the
Absolutely.
you are the go-to for that.
She is the go-to. She is the superintendent of our district.
Okay,
yes.
perfect. Well, I guess that's pretty much, I just wanted to voice my opinion and say I don't want our children to be masked. I would prefer that they have at least an option to have some form of exemption, whether that be whatever, religious, medical, whatever. But at least I think they should be given, the parents should be given the option of having their children wear masks or not. The children obviously can't, they don't have the ability to consent or not consent. That's why they're minors. But the parents, I believe, should have some say in this. I can't believe there's not more people here voicing their say, because you sure see it a whole bunch on social media about everybody's, concern with that. So that's basically what I wanted to say, is that speaking for my family, we would prefer that the children have some sort of option.
Thank you. And someone will be in touch with you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if there is nothing else, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Shea?
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Craig Feller,
Yes.
Ruslan Slutsky,
Yes.
Tammy Lavalette,
Yes.
Kimberly Conklin.
Yes.
Thank you. Ma'am?